I had heard about grace in my early 30s. I wrestled for about 15 years over keeping the commandments versus accepting Jesus Christ as my source of salvation. I was working it. My salvation was contingent upon my behavior. Another 15 years passed, and I was in my early 60s when I found this text that was totally revolutionary to me. Hebrews 8:12. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their lawless deeds I will remember no more. As a result of this text, I saw God differently. I'm an oil painter, and I'm often asked, what's the hardest thing in painting? And for me, it's to determine the subject. I always have the title of the painting in my head prior to painting. For the painting that you are looking at right now, I did not have a title. As I slashed the brush back and forth to make the marks that you see on Christ's body, I kept thinking to myself, how much do I beat him up? In that moment, I realized that I was, in fact, the one who inflicted that suffering upon him. I personalized it for the first time in my life. I had to come up with the title, and I realized this is the period of time when Jesus was saying, forgive them, while they were putting nails through his hands and feet. Once the title was established, I was broken. I wept like a child. I came to realize that Jesus really did forgive me. In that moment, I felt a massive stone-like sense of guilt being removed from off my chest, and I felt the freedom of grace finally in my life for the first time. Now listen to Jim Carrey's testimony concerning grace in his life.
That suffering leads to salvation, just as Christ did on the cross. He suffered terribly, and he was broken by it. We either decide to go through the gate of resentment, which leads to vengeance, which leads to self-harm, which leads to harm to others, or we go through the gate of forgiveness, which leads to grace.
Forgiveness and the realization of the suffering that Jesus went through in order to forgive you is in fact the gate to grace. When you believe the gospel of Jesus, which is entirely based upon his grace, it will result in a huge change in your life. In fact, the gospel of Jesus Christ leads to blessings. God blesses you not because you are good, but because he is good. It is based upon his faithfulness and goodness toward you. It is not contingent upon your performance, but on his undeserved favor toward you. If it were contingent on how good you are, it would no longer be grace, but the law. It would be deserved favor. This is the difference between the old covenant of the law and the new covenant of grace. The old covenant was engraved in stone. The new covenant, in the person of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, engraved wounds to prove the depth of his forgiveness for you and your sins. Law is deserved favor. When you obey the commandments perfectly, you will be blessed. Grace is undeserved favor. Jesus obeyed God perfectly, and you will be blessed by believing in him. I encourage you to stop working your way to heaven. You could never satisfy the requirements of a holy God. Jesus Christ did. Romans 10:9 and 10 simply states, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Trust God, who cannot lie, with the beauty and simplicity of this path to salvation. I encourage you to leave a comment concerning the content of this video and how grace has affected your life. Remember, every Wednesday a new video comes out telling about God's love to you through Jesus Christ, his Son. Share this with everyone. God bless you.